seems as though you got a lot of last-minute preparations going on. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
We just broke one of the straps on the exhaust pipe that holds it onto the boat. But other than that, we're just going through some routine checks, and everything looks great for the final.
You pulled it off.
Well, all I had to do is drive, but you know, these guys have been fighting this boat all season long, and it took us a heck of a long time to get together. We had a lot of problems, but boy, this is Budweiser's day today.
Well, you worked real hard and you deserved it, and we're all excited for you.
Well, I didn't have to do much. I just kind of went out and drove. The guys have been working their tail off for months on this thing, and it's just a fantastic piece of equipment, and it's a heck of a way to go out for the season.
Conditions were pretty good today, too, weren't they? That didn't hurt any.
Yeah, it was real good, and you know, we had a good race that last heat, and Steve Reynolds died down the first turn. We bumped coming off a 2 pretty hard there, and I don't know if Steve got any damage, but I think I left him enough room, and I'm sorry things like that happen. You know, we're racing. And
well, he lost the whole wing on the back of his boat, on the back shooting. We were all watching to see if everybody else was going to get through all right. You never saw it.
I didn't see a thing, no.
After he lost it, he started running faster. I don't understand that. He really came up on Jim coming down here.
A very classy move. Chip Hanauer of the Miller American coming over to congratulate the Budweiser crew. All of these boats, or many of them, are based in Seattle, so crew members and drivers alike, all very good friends. Bernie Little receiving the congratulations from the '85 national champion.
Ronnie's here with Ron Brown, the crew chief of the Budweiser. And what's going on in your camp right now? What's the mood? You had kind of a rough time in that last race, but of course you've run so smooth all year.
Well, we basically just prepared the boat for a routine final heat and changed engines and checked all the systems out, and everything looks fine for the final.
Looking back on that last heat, is there any dissecting it? Is there anything you can describe about what really happened there?
Not really. From this vantage point on this end of the pits, we're more than a mile away from what happened, but Jim certainly had the inside, and it looked like Chip was on the outside, and from what happened after that, we just saw a spray go into the intake of the engine, and naturally the engine can't withstand that kind of water, and it just put the fire out, and Jim had to restart, and by the time he did that, the race was over with for us. So.
All right. Well, just listening to Ron Snyder talking about who might be the winner. He calls you guys the favorites, the odds-on favorites to win it. I guess that's got to make you feel good.
Oh, I don't know if there's any odds-on favorite. Just what happened that last heat shows that the boat race can go to anybody, and we're not at all overconfident, and we've got to just go out there and do our job, and Jimmy's got to do his job, and where the chips may fall, that's what's going to happen. So.
All right. Ron Brown, crew chief of the Miss Budweiser. Let's go.
First 2 heats leading in the third before this boat flipped. And you talk about a race against time. This is a miracle working crew. Meet Ron Brown, who is the crew chief of the Miss Budweiser. Ronnie, you guys did this in less than a week. I can't believe it.
Well, Jim, it's due to the crew. These guys, John Reinberger, Lauren Sawyer, Tim Ramsey, Bernie's 2 pilots, Mike Araldi, and Dennis Mack, and everybody. There was 10 people involved in this project, and we added up that we put in 1,000 hours worth of labor here in about 5 days. It was just incredible.
Around the hour. I mean, there was no stopping.
No, 24 hours a day. There was 3 people in Seattle still working, building parts. Our glass man out there, Ed Nelson, he was building parts. And again, it was over 1,000 hours worth of labor done in 5 days, and that's incredible.
The pit with a winning crew.
Ronnie, what have you done to this boat since Detroit that makes it ride a little harder on the front nose?
Well, we, to be honest with you, we moved some center of gravity around the CG in the boat, and made a few more aerodynamic changes. And testing this week, we were trying some different theories, and today we just really hit on a good combination for this river. It just really seems to be handling the water beautiful, and we couldn't be happier. I really feel confident this week, and especially here today, the way the boat's riding.
Ron, what have you done to solve the problems with the saltwater?
Well, Mark, we've tried some other combinations in years past, and I think now we've got a little bit better handle on the situation. And what we've done is decided to keep the salt and water directly out of the engine. And to do that, we've installed an air filter, air cleaner arrangement, along with we've got a rear-facing inlet now instead of the forward-facing inlet, and we're making the water and air travel back forward and drop down on top of the filter. So it's been working quite well. And the third thing we do is we run our engines on a test cell and have set the engines up totally strictly just for saltwater conditions.
Go to the pits.
Ron, down at the other end of the pits, the Circus guys are changing engines, getting ready for the final. What about in the Budweiser camp? Will you put fresh power in?
Yes, that was always in the plan for the day, and we ran this engine for the first 2 heats with absolutely no compressor stalls. We really feel our system is working quite well. But the original plan was to put a fresh engine for the final, and we'll start doing that as soon as it hits the trailer.
When you talk winning and you talk hydroplane racing, you've got to talk the Miss Budweiser crew. And when you talk Miss Budweiser, it's Bernie Little. Bernie, you have assembled a team that is certainly the envy of a lot of others in this sport.
Yes, I think over the 27 years that we've been racing to Miss Budweiser, we've been very fortunate. Our crew comes up through the ranks, and we were very fortunate in getting Ronnie Brown and guys, Lauren Sawyer. These guys, John Reinberger, they've been with us a long time, and they're the best. And they've been propositioned by, I think, probably a lot of boat camps, but their loyalty to Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser and Bernie Little is just none like it. And I love them for it. And yet Dewey Norton flies in, commutes from Detroit, and Tim working out there on the engines. There's a whole group, and it takes the whole team, and I'm just a very small part of that team.
Ron, you've got a great crew that's done a tremendous job this year. What about the crew, and who are they?
Well, Dick, everybody on this team is a specialist in their own field, and we have Lauren Sawyer and John Reinberger, who have built all the boats and are totally in charge of hull setups. They consult with me. We talk with Jimmy, and between all four of us, we decide on how we want the boat to ride, how we want the boat to handle. Dewey Norton is our consulting expert from Detroit, but Tim Ramsey is the nuts and bolts man that physically assembles all the engines right there in Seattle. And Kurt Tavernier is our gearbox expert. Also did 99% of the fiberglass work on this boat is built by us in our shop, and Kurt is responsible for a lot of that. I myself, being the team manager, have to bring all the pieces together and make sure that there's a race boat out there, that the Miss Budweiser is tuned and ready to win on Sunday.
Jim, once the crew has finished their work, they put the boat in the water and turn it to you.
Well, that's right. You know, it's part of the deal. When the boat hits the water and it's wet, I own it. But everything that the Miss Budweiser does on the water, you have to attribute it 110% to my crew. They all give 110%. They're worried about me as much as their own family. Everything that they do, number one is for safety, and number two is for speed. And it's up to me to go out there and make them look good.
By Jim.
Well, 2 straight wins so far in the afternoon, and Ronnie Brown, crew chief, you got to be happy with the way the boat's going.
Yes, Jim, we're very happy. We made a lot of changes to the Miss Budweiser the last week or so, and it seems as though the balance and things we've done to it, Tom likes it quite a bit, and it seems as though it's dialed in real nice for the weather conditions here, and we couldn't be happier the way Miss Budweiser is running right now.
Bernie, was there ever a thought about maybe bringing out last year's boat and replacing the new boat with it?
Well, we've carried it every race, and needless to say that it's always been ready to go if we had a problem. And, you know, when we left Evansville, we thought we might have a problem, but you know, we've changed drivers, and we've just kept going with trying to do things to better it, and so we think we're going in the right direction.
Following the action, let's take a look at the inside of the Miss Budweiser racing team.
Well, Ron, I was talking to Bernie Little, and you guys get nothing but gold stars for this crew. This is a crew you and he have a tremendous amount of confidence in.
Yeah, Dick, that's right. The other day we had a major problem. We broke a propeller, went out of balance, and tore 8 feet of the bottom of the boat out. And here you're looking at the boat 36 hours later, straight through. We worked night and day on it, and just tested this morning, and it's running quite well. And you have to be proud of a crew like this, including all of us, myself. Everybody's been up for 2 days straight, and we elected to go with that boat for this race and use the other boat as our backup. So hopefully all this work is going to pay off. And it comes from people like John Reinberger and Lauren Sawyer that built these boats. We build our own equipment. And the engines are built in our own shop, run on our test cell by Tim Ramsey and Dewey Norton. And Steve Wisman builds the engines too with Tim. And then we got Kurt building our gearboxes. All in all, there's at least 9 crew members right now that it takes to maintain and keep 2 Miss Budweisers running year-round.
The racing teams of Miss Budweiser over 28 years have provided 69 career victories for Bernie Little. A concerned Bernie Little looking at the damage sustained by Miss Budweiser in that flight. And look at that whole right side of the back boat, really damaged. The crew has their work cut out for them. Dick Crippen is with the driver, Tommy D.
All right, Tom, number one, kind of an e-ticket ride for you again.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. I guess a roller got me again. I had the boat in pretty good position, although the Winston, he pulled me going to the first turn. And I got into the corner, and then it launched off a roller. It was nice and level, but it just carried me into Jimmy's tail. And then I went over the top of him. I started to come down, and I felt another tail underneath me, and I started to go back up again. And I was just hoping I was going to come down right side up.
Now let's take a look from the inside camera. Across the bridge here on Tri-Cities, Washington's Columbia River. Look at the Budweiser, goes up in the tail, disappears, but he does make it out okay. Washington, let's go down to Dick Crippen.
Well, Bernie, they're busy again.
Yeah, Dick, it's a Columbia River time, and, you know, we've had a multitude of problems on the river here, and like I said, we'd wind the Indiana race if the river didn't bite us, and it bit us, and so did this one, but it's just something that can't be helped. The speeds they're running, he's coming 196 mile an hour down that straightaway. That's moving out.
Here's my crew chief, Ronnie Brown. I think he's got something to say.
I think Scott pretty well said it all. All you people out there saw one heck of a boat race today, and the flag starts. I really think you'd have to see all those boats go into the first tournament together, and the crew, all these guys. Come on, get up here, Tim. Here's the guys that make it all happen, and we had a boat that had no sponson on it Monday morning, if any of you know out there. So this sponson was put on in about 3 days by our team, and all these guys did it. And also, before the final heat, we did a tremendous job trying to get the CG move forward. We put a whole bunch of weight in the front of the boat. Barely made the final heat, but these guys all did it. Here's Lauren Sawyer right here that built the boat. Tim Ramsey who builds the engines. John Reinberger here who built the boat. We got Leo Vandenberg who does everything. And Mark Smith over here does the gearboxes and just about everything. Joe, the coach driver. Dewey Norton right here who builds the engines. So these guys, they're the heroes. Scott did a hell of a job, but he needed them too, so thanks a lot.
A great crowd. Let's go down to Steve Montgomery in the winner's circle.
Chip Hanauer had to overcome more than the other boats today, and that has to make it especially sweet, Chip.
Well, it does. Thank God I had an unfair advantage today. The Budweiser team gave me, I think, the best piece of equipment out there. The conditions were horrible, and had they not given me such an unfair advantage, I think it would have been a totally different deal. This race belongs to the guys that prepared this boat, not me.
Bernie, I would say this young man did his part.
Oh, he sure did, and what a champion. I'll tell you one thing, he drove the hell out of that boat, and you could see how rough it was, and he wasn't feeling up to speed, but he said, I'll bring you home a winner, and he did.
The boat was great. You know, as hard a time as I had, I could tell the other guys were having a harder time. And I think the problem was they kept making us go around. It wouldn't give us a start. And every time we went around, it just made it rougher and rougher. But that's the roughest corner that we faced all year.
Actually, what happened is the propeller came off the boat by some kind of a mechanical failure. And when that happens, the tail drop that put the angle of attack in the boat up there where, with the velocities were running in excess of 200 miles an hour, the boat was upside down, and it really was not the crew's fault. It was just a mechanical failure that can happen, and Chip did the best he could do. He had no warning, none whatsoever. The boat was riding perfect up until that point, so we're just thankful that Chip and the safety systems, the canopy, survived the crash, and we're just thankful that Chip is well, and a few broken bones, but nothing major, and Chip's a competitor. He wished he could be here today. Sorry about that, though.
And put them in one big pot. Ooh, that looked good already. Took the whole thing and lowered it slow like in the water. Now you stir real fast, and just watch it cook.
This video.
Well, Chip, I guess this is the way to end a good day.
This is the best way to end a good day, and I'm so proud of my associates because 2 weeks in a row we haven't been the fastest guy on Saturday night, and we've gone into the race thinking, you know, we can't do it, and they just stay with it, and they stay with it, and by the time race day comes, look who's in the winner's circle.
Bernie, this was one that you really wanted.
I really did. I didn't want to tell Chip how bad I wanted it because, you know, this is my second home in Miami. I've lived here since '49.
He says that about every race. He wants them all.
I want them all, but, you know, well, that's 2 out of 3, so we're going to keep up the good streak, and Chip's driving hard and driving good, and the Budweiser crew is ready for him.
And Chip's having fun?
I'm having a lot of fun, and win, lose, or draw, I'm really glad that I'm here, and I thought a lot about that last night, and I want my associates to know that I'm just happy here because of the people they are, not necessarily because we're winning. Winning's fun, but I'm just glad to be here.
Bottom line comes down to the personnel that work underneath me and with me on a day-to-day basis, and we have not only the best driver in the world, but we have the most experienced and people in every one of the areas, as I referred to. And I think the experience those people have and the expertise they have, whether it comes to the computers, whether it comes to designing a gearbox or designing an aerodynamic foil that goes onto the boat, it's that stuff that makes my job much easier. All I can be is just an extension of what these other people are doing.
Ron.
With the winning boat, Miss Budweiser, They're saying that over 150 miles an hour, the bottom hatch, the escape hatch, came loose. Dick Griffin's down the docks with the crew chief, Ronnie Brown. Let's see if we can get a report on what's happened to the Miss Budweiser and the driver, Chip Hanauer.
Ronnie, what happened out there? Well, it appears that the trap door beneath the driver's legs must have apparently come loose and shook loose in that rough water, and Chip radioed back that he's got some pain and injury, so he actually shut it off, didn't even come back to the dock. I suspect part of the door might have come up and hit him in the leg or something. So it was very rough out there. A fluke thing, it's really never happened before, but I suspect some rough water might have popped up and broke that door loose, or maybe even disintegrated the door.
It's certainly not the way to end the day, not a day when there's so much happiness to be had for the Miss Budweiser, Bernie.
Well, that's true. As you've probably seen, or the cameras probably picked up, the hatch on the bottom of the boat on the final turn flew open, and it took a wall of water into his chest and his stomach. And at the speeds he was running, that's a lot of power, a lot of pain. He just
efforts with the local doctors and nurses. After being checked out, Chip Hanauer looking none worse for the wear. He's been in more serious situations in the past. Last year in Seattle and San Diego, he went on his head a couple of times, broke some ribs, but he's a tough kid, a good competitor. Let's hear firsthand from Chip himself exactly what did happen.
Well, Chip, I am so happy to see you up here accepting this award.
Well, it was, you know, it happened after the race. We crossed the finish line, and I slowed down and went through the first corner, which is very rough, and the escape hatch, which we used to exit the boat if the boat were upside down, blew out, and I just took a shot of water to the groin. Reminded me of my soccer days. I used to have a lot of those.
But you're okay. On a tour of that shop.
Welcome to the Miss Budweiser shop. Let me show you around. This is the main shop area where the support vehicles are kept. The shop is 200 feet long and 120 feet wide, and we basically house 3 boats in here along with the 2 transport vehicles. This is the engine room. This is the assembly area for the engines in here.
The engine parts that you see here on these racks represent the spare parts that we build up on a yearly basis. There's enough parts here to comprise approximately about 7 or 8 more engines.
This is one of the engines. This just came back from our test facility. We have a dyno where we completely go through the engines and monitor the horsepower rating and the parameters of the engine. So this is the Miss Budweiser machine shop. This is one of our engine lathes here. There's a propeller shaft in the machine now that we're starting to machine up. And over in here we have another milling machine along with some parts that we're reproducing over there, another lathe in here. So we're basically self-sustained here in the machine shop, where we can build virtually anything that goes onto the Miss Budweiser, build it right here in-house. And this is the CNC machine where we do our propellers, our rudders, the skid fins, things that have complex shapes to them.
What Rich is doing now is machining up what we call our battery straps. These straps tie together the NiCad cells in our batteries. And now you've seen part of the Miss Budweiser shop. The next
They put it all together, Bernie, and obviously you thought about that end of it.
Well, we did, and when we got Ronnie Brown to join the team, he did it. He started it all, and that's what we ought to get. Ronnie,
come here.
Come here, Ronnie.
Come here, Ronnie.
Come on in here.
You in here. This is Ron Brown, who's the man behind all the crew. And I got to tell you, Ron, I think you got to feel good today. The boat held together and it won. Those are 2 great factors.
Well, thank you, Dick. As Chip just said, those conditions out there were just horrendous, and we managed to get the Miss Budweiser tuned up for the final and get through those conditions. I think that was the main concern all day long. So we're very happy for Chip, and I guess we got lucky again. So.
Now let's take...
Welcome back to the Miss Budweiser shop. Now let's continue our tour. This is the propeller area. After the propellers are machined downstairs in the CNC, they have to come up here and be hand ground to their final finish. When the propeller comes from downstairs on the CNC, it actually has cutter paths that are onto the surface of the propeller. Those have to be ground off and sanded. It takes many, many hours of tedious hours of sanding and grinding to get a propeller into its completed state. Okay, this is the Miss Budweiser engineering department. We've built a lofting table here, 34 feet long, so we can loft out the hydroplane in full scale and all the components in full scale to see how they fit in the parameters. What we have here is a CAD system that what we gives us the latitude of being able to design and draw up these components, hardware, etc., that's on the boat, and actually print it out in full scale.
Here you're looking at an overhead view of the brand new boat under construction. We're calling this our 4th turbine boat. We're calling it Turbine 4, but as you can see, it's quite a bit different configuration in the design itself. You can see the center section of the boat is actually cut out where the air will flow through the middle of the boat. This is a new carbon fiber cockpit that we've manufactured right now, where Chip actually will be sitting in a much narrower, much more aerodynamically shaped cockpit. We've had done 134 tests in the wind tunnel of this design, and basically have proven that to ourselves that it's going to be much cleaner aerodynamically and much more stability involved in the design. So this really should be our boat for the future. Hope you enjoyed your visit at our home here in Seattle.
Ron Brown of the Miss Budweiser explaining how to prepare for it.
San Diego, being the first saltwater event of this season, some preparations have to be made for these turbine boats to run in saltwater. Normally, this is the air intake for the Miss Budweiser in freshwater. Because these boats are very hard to get on plane and a lot of spray has come forward, we extend our inlet forward so that it gets in front of where the spray may come, therefore not ingesting salt water into the engine of the Miss Budweiser. The second stage of our saltwater system is this deflector door. It has 2 purposes. It fills in this area, creating more lift, making it easier for the boat to plane off. Secondly, it deflects any water or spray that may get blown up into the inlet of the Miss Budweiser. As Chip leaves the pits, he pulls a handle retracting the door, thus eliminating the lift. At this point, he's already up on plane, up and rolling. The third but most important part of our system is this filter. It covers the engine, not letting any of the saltwater mist go into the inlet. Why do we go through this extensive saltwater process? It's to ensure that the power turbine wheels, such as this, that are running red hot, do not get salt crystallization, which would cause major damage to these turbine engines.
As we start.
One familiar face not with us this weekend, Budweiser crew chief Ronnie Brown. He's back in Seattle recovering from surgery. He's actually in the Budweiser shop in a hospital bed, but he's in touch with the Budweiser crew constantly. They are feeding him information after every run. The stuff from their computer goes into Ron's computer. He's making many of the decisions that will affect the Budweiser team here today.
The celebration.
Are we going to see something new here with the victory lap?
I like it. It's fun. It's close enough that it was nice to be able to stop and actually look at the fans in the eye. I could actually recognize people.
Can we race on this lake, Chip?
I think this is the most fantastic hydroplane course in the history of the world, right?
Ernie, this is one for the engineers.
Oh, it truly is. And never in my 32-year history do I remember a new boat coming out and taking a first victory. And we owe this to Ronnie Brown and my crew. They did an outstanding job. They give Chip a boat that'll win, and Chip gives them a victory.
I'm real optimistic for the season. Anytime you start with a new boat, there's a huge question mark, and I think this is going to be a great boat, not just for this unique course, but for the whole season. And thanks, Ronnie. I'm sorry you weren't here, and this is your victory. This is your boat. This is your team, and it's a credit to your management ability that we could do this. Thanks, bud.
Lots of celebration. Now Eagle Snacks Performance Corner with Ron Brown.
The egg-shaped 2.5-mile Gold Cup race course in the Detroit River is a major challenge to all the Unlimited teams. At the far end of the race course, you have the Belle Isle turn. It is the fastest and the biggest turn on the Unlimited circuit. The skid fin plays a very important role. The size of the skid fin, the placement of the skid fin, and the shape of the skid fin helps get the Miss Budweiser to such a large turn. As we're exiting the Belle Isle turn, we are now on the mile-long straightaway. We will see speeds in excess of 200 miles an hour. The aerodynamics become an important role. It's a canard wing like this that Chip has control to change the attitude of the boat at any time. Entering the rooster tail turn, which is our tightest turn also on the racing circuit, creates another whole new challenge. And accelerating from that turn to the finish line is certainly a very crucial point for us. Engine selection, gear ratio, and propeller all play an important role in accelerating the Miss Budweiser to the finish line. And let's not forget, this is the Gold Cup. It's a clock start. We don't have lane choice. Chip's going to have to go out there and fight for his lane. We don't know what that lane will be until Chip chooses that at the start of the race.
Now that you've seen our replay, you have an idea what happened?
Yeah, it's strange what happened. as you can look at the boat, the right sponson is gone, and looked like it went up. And as it went up, the right side dug in, and I've never seen that happen before. But when the right side dug in, it just kind of held there, and then finally it nosed on over and went on over. Anyhow, thank God, Chip is 100%. He was out in 16 seconds, got out himself, and he's a tough little guy, and he'll be right back there racing.
Ron, Chip, congratulations on the victory here and a come-from-behind win in the 1995 O'Doul's High Points.
I think Ron and Bernie and myself and the crew remember this one. This is the championship that we kept trying to give away, and nobody would take it, and they left the window open for us today, and thanks to Ron and his brilliance, we were able to go through that window.
Ronnie, your rough water setup was the difference today.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen it this rough, and Chip took a heck of a beating out there, but the Miss Budweiser seemed to go over the top of the stuff really good today. We had a good rough water boat, and I think that's really what won it. But I'd like to say congratulations to this team here. We were down in the dumps 4 times this summer, and to bring it up here at the last race of the season and finally win the championship right here in Honolulu, it's great.
Well,
we have spare parts for everything on the boat, and it looks like we probably can fix everything except the canopy is busted really bad, and it's broken right in his vision, and I'm sure that the URC is not going to let us run that canopy on that boat. I'm going to see what I can do about getting one shipped in. If we try and take the canopy off T5, these canopies are glued onto the composite structure, and to try and pull it off will probably damage that canopy and crack that one too. So the big concern right now is if I can get a canopy here in time.
We're down in the pits with the Miss Bud team. Ron Brown is the crew chief. He's going to explain what's going on down here. What's happening here?
Well, we've got probably some of the roughest conditions we've ever had here in Seattle, and we're suffering a little bit of fiberglass damage here and there. And right now we lost a few layers of the outer layers of this fiberglass skin, and we're going to redo it and put some skin on. It'll be fine for the next heat.
How long does that take to do?
Well, we have fast drying glue here, and we'll be done here probably about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So
Ron, walk right down here with me if you would for a second. Tell me, you've got a pretty big crew, and everybody's just really working very hard. Explain what these guys are doing up on top of the boat.
Well, we broke an engine mount too this heat. The water's so rough, and we had to pull an engine frame out. We're replacing it with another engine frame and a whole new engine and gearbox, so that we'll be ready for this next heat. But again, the water's so rough out there, we're suffering a little bit of damage everywhere in the Miss Budweiser.
Do you have the biggest crew down here today?
No, I wouldn't say the biggest crew, but we do have, since we're at home here and this is our hometown, we do have some extra people here that do work in our shop that we have on board here. Normally we would go to a race with about 8 or 9 people, and we're probably sitting here with about 12 or 14 people because this is our hometown.
This is a pretty busy place.
Well, it's part of racing. We do have to make the next heat, and they don't hold the clock up for us. So we have to do what we can to make sure we make the next heat.
Ron, good luck.
Thank you.
We're with Budweiser crew chief Ron Brown and his brand new Miss Budweiser, which includes a state-of-the-art cockpit designed by Ron with some changes in technology. Ronnie, some of the same switches, and you made some changes too.
Yes, Steve. Basically, though, the 2 cockpits amongst our boats right now are virtually the same. We start up in here, and we have our switches to start our onboard computer system. As we go down here, this lever is the latching system for locking the canopy. We have our starting sequence switches here. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our circuit breakers. These annunciator lights up on top are for warning systems. And over here, we have our fuel shutoffs. In case of an emergency, the driver can pull the fuel shutoff. As you can see, there are no instruments in this cockpit. The purpose behind that is since we have an onboard system and we monitor as many as 40 different items 60 times a second, we certainly can gather much more information than we ever could do in the past when the driver would come in and say, this did this and this did that. But we know now that we can get a much tighter information span when we have everything on a computer.
Way up front, the same 2 pedals.
Yes, Steve. On the right, we have our conventional throttle pedal, just like you'd have in your car. But on the left, in your car, you have a brake. But on this vehicle here, we have what we call a canard control, and that's how the driver controls the pitch attitude of the boat. And since we have to monitor this with our computer, we can gather information and end up with graphing like this showing the amount of travel on the canard, the amount of seconds it was into the run. We can certainly overlay water speed and things like that on here too, but this particular graph shows how the driver was using the canard if the wind was getting rough and he was trying to bring the boat down.
Well, coming into Heat 1B, all eyes are on the Miss Budweiser as they unveil a brand new boat trying to get that first win of the season. Steve Montgomery talked to crew chief Ron Brown.
Ron Brown, you decided this morning to run your brand new boat. Tell us why.
Well, Steve, actually, we've been fighting a little bit of a fuel problem here with this fuel restrictor, and both boats were within about a mile an hour of each other, so it really doesn't make any difference right now which hull we run, but we'd like to start concentrating on the new boat, and the only way you can concentrate on a boat these days is to go out there and actually race it in the rough water and get it in racing conditions. So it's just kind of a plan that we need to start working on our new boat.
Yeah, I sure am. You know, it's too bad that I had to wreck the boat, and it's too bad that I had to get hurt, but I think we learned something from it. We'll make the boat safer from now on, and I think that's real important for the rest of the sport and the safety of all the rest of the drivers. That I think we learned something from the wreck, and we'll make some changes next year to deal with that.
If those boats are repaired, I'm standing here with Ron Brown and his boat, and I don't think we'll see that one repaired today. Ron, now that you've got it on the trailer, what's the initial estimate?
Well, this is a couple-week project here, and the main thing here that happened here is we lost a good part of the side right here, and to repair this and have a quick patch put on and come off, we would wipe out the rest of the boat. So we've done enough of these to know that this is a little more severe than some of our other crashes. And it also got some inner structure inside here, which we call the air trap of the boat, and that's another mainstay of the boat. And we also suffered some damage when the skid fin went through the left front of the sponson up there, and it broke some frames out. And a couple hard hits on that, and we know that that would blow off too. So we really just can't go out there right now and risk losing the whole side of the boat. And you know, it's sorry for the fans. We had a good running boat today. We really felt confident we could have done well, and Mark was doing one heck of a job. And it was plenty wide in that turn. It's just one of those racing incidents. Another boat skipped over on top of us, and we're not mad. It's just a shame that we couldn't be out there competing and giving the fans some kind of a show.
And the good news is, after all of that, it is Mark Webber that came away safely, indeed, with all this damage, and the canopy worked well.
The canopy did its job. Mark's very, very happy that the canopy is severely scratched. Obviously, the sponson of the boat landed on top of the canopy, but as we're very happy with the structure, held up very well. Mark came out of it with not a scratch on him. But obviously, when the rudder goes through the side of the boat like this and the skid fin goes through the front of the boat, we can't really control that kind of damage.
To this point, and he could have took it easy and ran a second and then a third in the next heat, but no, he went for it and won this heat and won the championship.
Yeah, congratulating the crew chief, Ronnie Brown, one of the key members there, Lauren Sawyer, and there's Dave Villwalk with his back to us, joining the team hug. Tom, you ought to know, you've been a champion. The story of Bernie Little and Miss Budweiser. Now, to the champions, Doc.
Mark, you had to be patient today, but, you know, the national championship, that's what it's all about.
I'll tell you, this doesn't have anything to do with Mark Webber or any driver of this boat. It has to do with this crew. They haven't slept in probably about 37 hours right now, and they never gave up. And to win a championship, you got to take one hit at a time, and I kept telling them. And last night proved it. We're with the